Hello, podcast listeners. We know podcasts are a great way to catch up on a program that you may have missed on KSJE, and it's provided as a free service of this radio station. But KSJE is now listener-supported, and so while you enjoy this podcast, we hope that you'll also take some time to join KSJE. Become a member today. It's quite easy to do. Just go to our website at ksje.com/support and pick the level of support that best matches your budget. Thanks again for listening. Here's your podcast.
Good morning. This is Traci Hales with Right on Four Corners on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico, and 103.3 Durango, Colorado. Today I'm talking with local writer Anthony Bartley about his new book, Freakshow Summer. Good morning, Anthony.
Good morning. How you doing, Traci?
I'm doing great. I tell you what, I really enjoyed reading Freakshow Summer.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to write, and I'm glad it's finally out.
Yeah, me too. I am too. I've watched you go through the pains of putting it together and revising and editing, and here it is, and it looks great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, a lot of work went into it. The illustrator, Ian Bristow, did a phenomenal job, and I don't think I could be any happier with the product, the finished product that it is now.
Yeah, the artwork's great. We'll talk about that too, but first, why don't we give our listeners a brief synopsis of what exactly Freakshow Summer is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Freakshow Summer takes place in 1938, and it is a carnival that travels around the Southwest, known as Oliver Neal's Marvelous Carnival. And a young boy by the name of Manny is growing up and in the carnival, and he is an orphan. His parents died under somewhat mysterious circumstances, and so the carnival decided to go ahead and keep Manny on, as a favor to his parents. And so he grows up among the sideshow freaks, quote unquote, and becomes great friends with many of them, and they become part of his family. And it's about him learning to work through life in general and understanding, how people treat others, coming into his own, learning to appreciate who he is and what he's able to do himself. So it's kind of his journey as he grows up in the carnival. So some very unusual characters will be introduced. I think we consider most characters in a book. We have a lot of weird ones in this one. So.
There are a lot of weird ones, yes. And let's see, Manny is 13 at the beginning of this.
That is correct, yes. It is a middle grade to young adult novel. Most of the characters, the main characters anyway, are teenagers, between 13 and 14. And then there will be, of course, adult characters throughout, right. But the main characters, of course, are the kids.
Yep.
So it is directed specifically towards the younger adult audience.
And it's very readable for adults too. I really enjoyed it. So first of all, why did you pick 1938 to set this?
Well, for a couple of different reasons. This is the 1920s and 30s were the height of the American carnival sideshow, and it's after the 1940s you really see it decline, and you also see the beginnings of the mechanization of the carnival, which means all the rides and things like that, and the carnival kind of goes out of style. Not just because it was, politically incorrect, but mostly just because there wasn't a demand for it. So that's a big reason why I said it in the 1930s. Also, I think it's a time period that is quite interesting, and there's a lot going on. You have the beginnings of World War II in the mid to late 1930s. You also have the Great Depression, and so. There's a lot of different variables taking place that allow the carnival to be a refuge, really, for people who may not be able to get work otherwise. And so the carnivals kind of kept the United States economy moving along a little bit on its own, because you have people spending money there, and then of course that causes the spending of money by the carnivals and so on and so forth. So I just felt it was an interesting time period, and honestly, it was appropriate for the setting that I needed for a carnival sideshow, freaks and so on.
And they are what they call the freaks. They're the people who are somewhat malformed, I guess.
Yes. In some cases, yes. You did have a lot of physical disabilities, mental disabilities among these individuals. Today we would call them sideshow performers, but back then the colloquial term was freaks.
Mm-hmm.
Freaks of nature was kind of the idea behind it. And so, again, in part, the carnivals were in some ways a haven for a lot of these individuals because they couldn't get work anywhere else. They were unusual. They had an unusual appearance, maybe some certain limitations, of course. And so really the only honest living that they could do in a lot of cases was the carnival sideshow. And that's where, Manny starts to see, the main character starts to see just how society treats these individuals because, they were just basically there to be stared at, in a lot of cases ridiculed by the public. And so he begins to see this interaction between the public, the general public, and those he would consider family and friends. And that's where a lot of his growth is going to come into play.
And they all were like a family, and they had a good time, and they really interacted well. So any prejudice against them was kept outside. But you do have a group called the Oldies, the Order of the Lion's Den. Is that a real thing, or was it?
Not them per se, but they were based on real groups. There were certain what they called morality groups that went after these kind of risque sorts of entertainment. Vaudeville was often a target, even the motion pictures at the time, because they were still fairly new, were often a target of these morality groups. They were also kind of tied in a little bit with the Prohibition era of, with the whole idea that, drinking and so on is frowned upon. And then they also, one of their biggest targets, of course, because, the stereotype of the carnival was that they were full of criminals and misfits.
Right.
And so carnivals were often targets of these groups. So many cases, even though Order of the Lion's Den, or the Oldies as I nicknamed them, they themselves didn't exist. Many groups like them did. And so I just tried to come up with a unusual sounding name again. I kind of viewed Order of the Lion's Den as Daniel and the Lion's Den, and so they're the ones in the Lion's Den, and they're trying to do the good work and tame the lions, so to speak.
Yeah, and I thought that was really interesting, and it brought to mind the era, of course, and the attitude that was even growing in eugenics. And many groups were trying to be eradicated so that the races could be more pure.
Yes, it was it really was kind of a dark and yet experimental time period.
Right.
Like you say, the eugenics and teratology and things like that were really come into play. The study of the deformities that may occur in the womb. A lot of cases, that it was undesirable, of course, to have a birth like that, and oftentimes they were either aborted or given away or shut up in asylums.
Right.
So the treatment of many of these people was just brutal. And again, this is kind of the area that I wanted to go into. I don't get into like the real nitty gritty because like I said, the audience is more for the youth. But in reality, it was a pretty bad situation for a lot of those that were in the carnivals at that time.
Right. I know that there's so many like messages, and you actually have written a teacher's guide for this. So what would be the main point that you want to teach young people through this book?
Yeah, that's a really good question. ultimately, it's the idea of not just tolerance. We can be very tolerant,
Right.
And look the other way. That's could be considered tolerant. But I wanted people to be accepting and open to people who may be a little bit different than they are.
Mm-hmm.
To look past any sort of physical. I'm trying to think of the right word, but the the physical faults that somebody has, as opposed to looking at the person as who they are.
Right.
These are real people, and many of the characters, the sideshow performers that I have were real. I mean, these were these were the real type of people that you would see in these sideshows. And again, just because they looked a little different, they had something unusual about them that would not fit, quote unquote, the norm, were often targets of ridicule, prejudice, discrimination. And that is what I want to try to get across to the young people, is that, number one, if they fall into the category, where they do have a certain physical limitation or a mental limitation, that they're people, and
Right.
they should be treated as such. And likewise, the people who they come in contact should be willing to see them for who they are rather than what they look like.
And I think that you've really portrayed the characters as real people. I got very attached to like a handful of these people, and this was one of those books that when you finish it, you miss them. You want, I really want to hear more about them.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's always my hope.
Right.
I think that's the hope of every writer, is to make their characters, living
Right.
inside the reader. And when they're gone, you miss them,
Right.
and
Right.
you want to know about them.
It's really true.
Yeah, that's.
Now, you have on your website, which is anthonybartley.com, a photograph from the movie Freaks of some of these real people who are malformed in some way or another. Now, did that trigger your interest in this?
100%. I mean, that was a huge part of. Well, honestly, it goes back to my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
She actually met one of the characters that's in the 1932 film Freaks, and that was an individual by the name of Schlitzie, the Pinhead. Pinhead was, again, kind of a derogatory term for somebody with a smaller cranium. Microcephaly is the technical term for that.
Mm-hmm.
But she had met Schlitzie, and Schlitzie is actually a man, but the carnival would dress him up in dresses, and then shave his head to accentuate the small cranium. But anyway, she told me this story, and I just thought that was fascinating that she met this person.
Mm-hmm.
And then she told me about the film, the 1932 film Freaks, and I watched it, super intrigued. Again, it definitely does not hold up to the standards of today. But these are real people. These were real sideshow performers that starred in the film. And at the time, speaking of those morality groups, it was shut down. They would not allow it to be shown in many places around the United States. In fact, it was banned in many areas around the world as well, simply because it portrayed real people. And, for some, it was just a little too disturbing, apparently, to look at these people.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I saw that movie, when I was young, and of course it fascinated me too. So I appreciate that you've taken these characters and made them, loving, talking, real people who have girlfriends and boyfriends and interact in just like normal people.
Right. And that was the intention, because, again, these are normal, emotional beings, that needed love, that needed support, that needed to go after dreams. And, that was, again, another part of this novel, was to show them as such, as people who were just trying to live life the best they could. Hopefully that comes through.
It does. It does. And it's interesting that Manny, who they call Mop Top, is not, quote unquote, a freak, but his parents were gypsies and were in the in the carnival, and he's just a normal guy, but his family that he's closer to are these other people. So I think that's a really good main character for that reason.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was kind of the intention.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel comfortable writing from the perspective of somebody who may have had a disability of some sort. I did make Manny have some scars
Right.
as a result of the trauma he went through
Mm-hmm.
earlier in the novel. I mean, it talks a little bit about what happened to him, and I don't want to give that away. But
Right.
as a result of that, yeah, he has to find somebody. But a lot of times these groups really did stick together. They really did watch after their own. And, a young kid like Manny lost his parents, and they were close to the carnival. Oftentimes these people would step up and try to take care of one of their own.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't always the case, of course. Again, I'm
Right.
looking at a very idealistic view of the carnival, but in a lot of cases, these people were family to one another. They did look out for one another and made sure everybody was as safe as possible. And Manny was one of those.
Yeah.
He was a character who needed that help, and they came through for him.
That's right. Why don't we take a minute and let you read a little bit from Freakshow Summer, and then we'll talk more about it.
Okay. All right. Great. Yeah. Let me pull it up here for you.
Great.
I will just start from chapter 1, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Order and Chaos. The brawl started as most did at Oliver Neal's marvelous carnival. Someone insulted Olga One-Ton, the fat lady, and this upset her husband, Huffman, the carnival foreman. Words exchanged, names called, then a punch thrown. Sometimes somebody spit out a tooth after that first hit, but this time it was only blood. A man charged, screaming, "For the order of the Lion's Den!" He slugged away at the big foreman, who blocked and dodged the swings with ease and expertise. Huffman didn't even lose his sweat-stained derby hat. The big foreman rubbed his fist as if it itched. Here comes a little chaos for the order. The precise jab slammed into the man's nose. With another bloodied fighter in the mix, the jeering crowd turned into a frenzied mob. Carnies and townies clashed into a blur of swinging arms and flying chairs. 13-year-old Manny Dobra watched his best friend, Nickel Leprechaun, scamper across the sideshow tent. The 14-year-old dwarf dodged a bottle as he ran toward the stage under which Manny hid. With his flat cap askew on his head, Nickel dropped to all fours and frantically crawled under. "Holy baloney, that was close," Nickel said as he scooted closer. If I was an inch taller, that would have smacked me good." A chair clattered above. "Good thing you haven't hit your growth spurt yet," Manny said. "Ha, good one, Dobra. I'm going to use that line in my show. Glad I could help." Something shattered against the base of a nearby support post, spraying glass over the boys. Manny plucked an inch-long sliver from his thick, curly hair. "Damn it!" Nickel crawled further back. "This one almost as bad as the Wichita Brawl 37. As Manny retreated with his friend, they churned up dirt and sawdust. The particles tickled the inside of his nose. Above them, a loud thud sounded, then a body rolled off the stage. A figure lay on his side, but Manny recognized the scaly skin of the one and only Herb the Alligator Man. His lively blue eyes stared at the pair, then he smiled. "What are y'all doing in that there rabbity hole? Afraid a lion's gonna mash you?" He laughed, got to his feet, and jumped onto the stage. His running footfalls banged overhead. Then there came another loud thump of a body hitting the floor. Either Herb met his match, Nickel thumbed above him, or he got himself some revenge. The boy rubbed his hands together as if warming them. "I can't wait till I'm old enough to be out there socking mouths and knocking heads." Manny smiled and nodded, but unsure if he was as eager. He self-consciously rubbed a long, thin scar running from the corner of his left eye and towards his left ear. Another scar disfigured his right arm. The flesh looked as if someone had smeared bright globs of pink clay from the elbow to wrist. Many of the carnies say that the Order of the Lion's Den, the oldies, caused the fire that night nearly a decade ago. Making punching noises, Nickel watched the fray, then glanced at Manny. His noise-making paused as he seemed to notice the downcast appearance of his pal. "Oh, hey, I meant nothing by it. You know me, 90% mouth, 10% brain. Who knows? When you're older, you'll ball up those hands," he held up his fist, "and wallop those oldies, just like Huffman does." Manny lifted his scarred up arm. "I've got an arm that'll scare the bejesus out of him." "That's the spirit." Nickel patted his buddy on the shoulder. "It looks perfect for popping an oldie and the kisser." The boy swiveled his head left and right. "You ready to skedaddle? Out the front or back?" Manny looked behind him at the cover exit, but he knew how to remove the panels. "Safer going out the back." Nickel's smile gave his eyes a mischievous squint. "The front has the excitement. Might get hit, but we'd have a good story to tell the girls." A worm of apprehension wriggled in Manny's belly, but his friend had a point. He could sneak out the rear and miss the whole thing, or face the maelstrom of punches. Courage plucked the worm from his belly. "Front way it is." The two army crawled forward and entered the brawl. A bottle shattered against the lantern post. Glass shards flew like grenade shrapnel.
That's
Okay.
great. It really captures the taste of the book and the activity. I mean, talk about starting an action, huh?
Yeah, that's what I tried to do anyway.
That's right. Nickel, we should tell people that he is a dwarf, right?
Nickel is his best friend, and he's also a dwarf performer.
Mm-hmm.
His whole family, it's the family of dwarf and little people.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so that's great. And it's interesting that Manny is an artist. I mean, he's an amateur artist, and he kind of draws surreptitiously behind the scenes. But at the beginning of every chapter and on the cover of the book, you have your artist Ian making great drawings.
Yeah, and a lot of that, those drawings were directly from the novel.
Uh-huh.
As far as images and action scenes from the book.
Right.
I do have a couple in there that are based off of what Manny drew in the story.
Mm-hmm.
So people as they read, they'll come across one of those images and recognize it from one of Manny's drawings.
Right. So how did you meet Ian Bristow?
Well, actually, it was through the publisher,
Uh-huh.
Artemisia Publishing, and Jeff Hobiger is the one who contacted Ian about doing the drawings and doing the cover, and so it was all through him. And as you can see, he chose well. He's a young man, and he did a great job capturing the likeness of a lot of these characters.
He really did. And on your website, you have a link or a couple of links to Ian's work where I saw more. And that was a good choice. And I think the two, with your writing and his visual artwork, really merged well.
I hope so. Yeah, I thought so as well. Just looking at some of the drawings, and number one, I was really excited to see another artist's take on what I had,
Mm-hmm.
and he captured almost perfectly what I had envisioned for these characters.
That's great.
And then also, it's great eye-catching material. As
Right.
kids flip through it, they'll see this artwork, and hopefully it'll intrigue them enough to want to buy it or check it out from the library and give it a go.
Absolutely. And I think that I saw that there might be the idea that this could be used as a classroom book.
That would be my dream,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest. I want to get this into the hands of teachers, and that was really a big reason why I created a teacher's guide.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a teacher myself and taught 20-plus years, and so I come from that background, and I think I've captured what an English teacher might want to use
Right.
when they use this book, and also just it makes it easier for the teacher to have the book and be able to teach a lesson from it, and have assignments for it,
Mm-hmm.
and meet all the state requirements
Right,
that
right.
come on a teacher. And so that was my goal for creating this particular this book, but also the guide for the teachers.
And you teach middle grade, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, I've taught English for 13 years, and have been teaching history for the last 11. So I'm going on, 24 years. Holy cow.
Holy cow is right. But you know that age group, so that was good. So you were able to really make Manny real because of your association with these students, right?
Yeah, I think so. That's always the goal.
Right.
To me, he seems real, and
Yeah.
that in the reader's mind, I hope he comes out as a fully fleshed out character, as with all of them.
Right.
Nickel, and that I have Ron, who will be one of the antagonists in the book. Ron is the bully that is newly arrived, and in the end, we do see some changes taking place between this group, and we kind of start to understand why Ron is the way he is, and I think that is often the case with a lot of these young people who lash out.
Right.
It's just a lot of times it's just misunderstanding or home life, and so I wanted to echo that as well.
Yeah.
For young readers.
I can see that, and I thought about that as I read about Ron and got to know him, that he's the perfect example of a bully character and can be used as an example of how to treat a bully and understand one better.
Right. And I don't want to, paint with one coat area and just say, oh yeah, this is how all bullies are. Of course, there are many variables when it comes to these young people, and but this is many of these characters, like I said, have been based off of either real experiences that I had or experiences and personalities that I've taught over the years, and just getting to know young people.
Right.
And so the goal was, again, to make these characters real to them, to make this not just a plot-driven, but a character-driven novel.
Right.
And, like you said, to make these characters living in their mind, as well as on the page.
How long did it take you to actually write this?
Oh, boy. Well, off and on, it took me probably 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's not because it took so long to get it all together. It's just as a teacher and so on, I was busy. But also, the editing process takes a long time to go through. Yeah. And I actually went through a couple different iterations. I actually start out from a completely different perspective than Manny. I actually was going to start with Ron.
Oh.
And, and then I didn't feel like he would have been an interesting enough character because in the beginning he wasn't the bully. He wasn't going to be the bully in the novel, but and Manny was going to be just a side character that never really did much. And I thought, well, he seems to be the more interesting, even though he's, at the time he didn't really have much to do, but he had a lot of conflict. And I thought, that's what I need. I need a more conflict with these characters.
Right.
And Manny fit that bill. And so I went back and started all over from the perspective of Manny. That's the book that we have now. So, but it does take a long time to get through those edits, and hopefully I caught everything that needs to be caught.
Right.
In this book. So.
And that's one thing I like to ask my authors: did you outline or did you just write it? Are you a plotter or a pantser?
Oh, I'm a little bit of both. I honestly, when I have kind of a skeletal idea of the novel, there are certain events, certain images that I have and that I want to try to incorporate. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. As a writer, you probably understand that.
Yes.
And in the end, I will just sit down and write, and sometimes it just takes off on its own, and I come up with different things that I never would have thought of if I just sat down and tried to outline. It's very spontaneous in that regard. So it's a very enjoyable process when it really starts to flow.
It does.
And you start to see that these characters come into life. Like I said, it's just very enjoyable for me.
I love the way they often will take over and say, no, we're going to go this way instead.
Yes, absolutely. There were certain parts, certain things that happened in the novel that I had never planned. I didn't recognize that was a possibility for some of these characters. But yeah, a lot of times it just happens organically, just like life. Life is very mechanic, we may have our plan, but how we get there is a completely different journey than what we may expect.
That's right.
Really wanted to push bookshop.org,
right,
which supports a lot of independent bookstores. So I wanted to give them a little bit of a shout out.
Yes.
And but yeah, I'd love to meet anybody that would it's interested in the book, and I'm here in Farmington, so.
And they can contact you through your website, anthonybartley.com, correct?
That is correct. Yep, I am available there, and just about all my contact information is on there.
And that was Anthony Bartley, here in Farmington, New Mexico, talking about his new middle-grade young adult novel, Freakshow Summer. This is Traci Hales with Right On Four Corners on KSJE, 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico, and 103.3 in Durango, Colorado.
Did you enjoy that podcast? We hope that you did. And if you did, share it with your friends. And if you really want to keep podcasts like this coming, please support KSJE. You can do it easily online at ksje.com.